Welcome, everybody, to the Color Authority podcast. Today, I'm going to be talking to Lidi Bus, born Dutchie. Lidi designs and fabricates unique, inflatable props and set pieces. Definitely not modern art to be stared at in silence. Her creations are striking expressions of applied art aimed at fashion, interior design, product presentations, photo shoots, and events. And of course, they are super, super colorful. Inflatable items with specific dimensions and colors, and it can be created on request. Her main motto is to break free from average. Good morning, Lidi. Welcome to the Color Authority. How are you today? And I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
Hi, good morning, Judith. I'm doing great. Actually, really looking forward to have this conversation with you. I'm a big fan of your work.
Well, we were just discussing before we actually started that you're actually wearing my branding color of the Color Authority podcast. So I'm
Yeah,
not do that on purpose, but I do appreciate very much.
thank you, thank you. No, it's one of my favorite colors, obviously.
Well, we're going to be talking a lot about color because what you do is extremely colorful. So that's exciting. But the first question, the same as for everybody else, which is what is color to you, Lidi?
For me, color is like a material. The material I use is it supports color and it carries out color in a certain way. But color is it's really connected, a really connected element with my work and with my design. So I cannot see color apart from the design.
Yeah. So it's part of your thinking. When you're starting to think about one of your designs, color is immediately part of that design.
Yeah, that's totally true. Color is there right from the start. I have a design in mind, and it comes in at a certain color. First, I'm going to draw, and I often do imagine there a color. I often make sketches in clay, so I get my head around about the shape, meaning that I understand measurements and curves and stuff like that. I use this in a scale as a scale model, and then I paint it as soon as it's dry in a certain color. This gives me a clear idea of how the inflatable looks like. Should I also tell about my color inspiration right away?
Yeah. Yes, please. And also, I'm also curious. So, first of all, where you get your color inspiration, but also, second of all, you start with clay, which
Yeah.
obviously your product is not in clay.
No,
It's
no. Yeah, so that's a
how do
big
you how do
transformation.
you translate that? Because color on clay obviously will look different
Totally different.
than on your final material. So how do you do that matching?
So as I was saying, I see color as a part, a material on sich. I don't know if that's a good word in English. And when you use a material under it, so like paper, clay, fabric, it totally has a different feel. And also it has to do with structure and stuff and tactical stuff. So I first start in paper, and then I make this drawing I have in clay, and then I paint the clay first white. So I do a really big white layer, and then above that I will adjust the color. But it's just a sketch. So obviously when I work with fabric, which is the end of the project, the color is really different. So I have to keep in mind what kind of fabric am I going to use, but because sometimes it's a little bit transparent or it has a structure, and it's yeah, that's all part of the process.
Yeah. And it changes the color inside because clay
Yeah,
is obviously 100% opaque.
yeah,
As soon as something is transparent, there's light coming through. So
exactly.
the color saturation completely changes.
Yeah,
You adjust. So you have to adjust what was in your mind,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah,
you
yeah.
and then in the end it will look different.
Yeah, totally true. And it also the when you place next colors next to each other, also the light is different. So when I'm use, for example, kite fabric, and if kite fabric has the light part above, then the light comes from above and it goes through the inflatable, and it totally looks different. So it's all in the process, man. I cannot say. I see the whole making art process as playing. I really need to. Yeah, well, first I go to the studio. The studio for me is really a safe space, a space where I can totally feel free from any rules or actually anything out there. When I'm in the studio, I first have to relieve myself from all the stuff I should actually do. So I feel guilty for a little bit. And after that, and
Right.
after I'm done with feeling guilty, I started to play. And then this is how the whole process came about. And I call this the open mode. There's a really famous speech of John Cleese
Mhm.
as about being creative, and I learned this from him. Being to work into the open mode, you need to have a little bit time to just do nothing
To be
and do
bored. Yeah, to be
not
bored.
be bored, or he's saying puttering about. That's funny. I think that's fun. And but then after that you can be open, and then there are no rules, nothing is wrong. You can start from nothing, and I see it as playing. This is how I work.
Going back to that guilt feeling, what does it mean? You feel guilty because you're supposed to, I don't know, do household work or what?
Exactly, exactly. I'm a mom of three kids, right? There's always stuff to do. I also teach art. I mean, there I have students. I mean, yeah, it's a busy life. So when you are in the studio, you really need to put that aside and make room for being creative. That's a really clear choice you have to make there.
Yeah. Well, you come from a family where art is it's in your veins, it's in your blood. You're an artist, like your grandpa, but like most journeys, it's not the easiest journey. You know, I think nothing in life is easy, but it comes with ups and downs. Can you talk a little bit about this journey? Because you just talked about the guilt feeling. I think guilt feeling is a typical female thing, but I think it's also a Dutch thing to
Oh
feel.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a Dutch thing. Like you have to earn your free time. You have to earn the joys of life. I think it's especially in the northern part of the Netherlands. So it's funny. So can you talk a little bit about that journey, like that moment that you knew you wanted to be an artist and how that came about to where you are now?
Okay, so the journey was quite hard. Actually, I started 3,000 years ago as an art teacher. No, I did Willem de Koning, and after the first year, I said to my dad, he is the son of the artist. Well, my granddad was an artist; he was a sculptor, Dirk Bus. And I said to my dad, now I want to become an artist. And then he said, no, that's no option. And I said, why not? Because you don't have any money and that whole story. So he advised me to become a teacher, an art teacher, which I did. I get my teaching degree, and then I started teaching, and I did that for a long time, and then I gave birth to my three sons, obviously, and then a couple of years ago, I was like, oh, am I going to teach for the rest of my life? Is this what I really want to be? And then the answer was no. So I went to do my master degree in Groningen. I went to the Frank Moore Institute, and yeah, for me it was a really difficult journey to break free from the actually the idea of my family what art should be. So my family had a really strong opinion about that, and I grew up with that from when I was really little. I really had to break free. So because my family always my granddad, he's a sculptor and he's figurative, so art was always figurative. There were always figures in there, and figurative is what it's supposed to be, and abstract art wasn't less appreciated in our home. So I used my master degree for to form my opinion what art for me meant for me and what I think it actually is. And I started to put artists next to each other, and I wrote down what I appreciate about them and what I liked less about them. And then along the way, during those 2 years, my taste changes. And I made a list of true heroes to myself, what kind of artists I really like and what I think they were really cool, and which elements, obviously color was a big important element. And this list, I still have this list, but it's constantly moving and shifting around. And I started with most figurative artists, and now at today it's most of the artists I really like are abstract.
Which one are the ones that you really like right now? Like the ones that are now today on your list?
That's a good question. So I'm now really into photographers, actually. So we just talked about earlier about Barry Dijkstra. He's a curator actually, but he also does really colorful, beautiful pictures with design actually. But these design pieces are really colorful and cool shapes. So that really impresses me. And I also like.
I think with Betty, what's so interesting is, of course, his Hay backgrounds, because
Yeah,
I met him when he was at Hay.
yeah,
Hay is so colorful. Like they'll have
yeah,
like 6 colors on one product. So that's really, you still envision that he's also this color guy, he's color
yeah.
is very important.
Totally true. And we lived in Copenhagen a couple of years ago, me and my family, and I went to the Hay House and I was totally impressed by that. Also the drawings of Natalie, oh, I forgot her name. I'm bad at names. She's a French artist and she painted, when you come into the Hay House, she painted the walls and it's so beautiful and but also shaped, right? It's not only color, it's shaped and it all matches together. For me, that really comes together. So ironically, I now see myself as a sculptor, same as my granddad, but I make sculptures out of air, abstract instead of out of stone. And
Bone or
that's
metal or yeah.
yeah, exactly. So that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you research material, color, and shape. You just
Yeah.
explained a little bit about your process. Color, the color comes from inspiration where exactly? So also, first of all, your kite fabrics, that's nylon, polyester?
Yeah, so I use for now. I'm using three type of fabrics. I use Tyvek. Tyvek is like a fabric. It's in between paper and fabric, but like well, everybody can imagine. No, I have to explain this. Needs to be close, so the air cannot go out. So that's really important. Then you could say you can use plastic, but plastic has a really different plastic, by the way, is a really good carrier of color because it's really it's
Stable.
quite yeah,
Yeah.
stable. That's the good word. And plastic, when you work with plastic, you cannot sew it under the sewing machine and you have to stick it with tape. And that's also really something you have to think about. I don't like sticking with tape. I like working on a sewing machine. So it also has to be like something you can work with and you feel comfortable with. So what was the question again? I'm
How
sorry.
do you get to your color choices?
Oh my God, our choices. Yeah, let me think about that.
I know that color is
Well,
something that comes in your mind immediately when you think about shape and material.
yeah, okay. So for inspiration, I do a lot of window shopping, actually.
Mhm.
So I live in Rotterdam and I do a lot of, well, I look at the colors in the windows of the city. But I also steal from color ideas from interior design, other designers and other artists. I'm really sensitive to trends for color, but most of the time I'm doing it on my gut feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good feeling. But they're always bright colors, I feel, because
Yeah,
when I look at your work, it's very colorful. It's
it
not,
is.
you don't have muted colors, you don't have blacks and grays, it is colorful. So that's one of your branding as well, to do something it's colorful. What is that message that you want to give to people when they look at your work?
Ooh, that's a hard one. Well, my work should be fun. I don't carry a really political message, or I don't want to talk about the environment, which I don't want to say that I'm not about that, but it's just I don't have this big feeling that I want to say something to the world, and I really appreciate the artist who does that, but for me, it's not big issue. I think it's light and it has to be fun. Yeah, you could call that superficial, but then I quote Andy Warhol, one of my favorite artists, saying, "I'm a deeply superficial person," which I'm not, but no, I don't have a big message. I
Yeah.
think what I think is important is that we look at a lot of images these days on our phone and social media and stuff. And I think there's a really big thing called the monoculture. So the monoculture is rising and it's taking over everything. Every picture looks the same on Instagram. And I'm a big fan of making authentic or other different kind of pictures. I think that's cool. And then yeah, and then in real life, I mean, AI is my biggest concurrent, I could say,
Yeah.
because when you're making pictures, you could also do that on a computer. But for me, it's really important that it's real and you can touch it.
It's well, yeah, your work is very tactile because it's inflatable design. So also, if you don't put the air in, it does
It's just a bag. It's
yeah
nothing.
back. But
Yeah.
then obviously there's movement as well.
Yeah.
What was your first idea? Like how did this inflatable design come
Come
about?
about.
Yeah.
When I did my master degree, I also taught at a school and I have my three kids. And I was living in Delft at the moment and I was studying in Groningen. So I had to go back and forth every weekend. And then I go back on Saturday, sleep in my studio until Tuesday, and then drive back. So my work was, well, as I was saying, it was moving from figurative to abstract art, and it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And at one point, I changed the whole attic with styrofoam and really big stuff, but then it didn't fit in the car
Oh,
anymore. So then at one point, we were just talking about a hair dryer. I had a hair dryer, and I had a little piece of kite paper actually, and I wrapped it around and I pushed the button, and then all of a sudden it became really big, and there I was. It was like right in front of me, and I discovered that something can be really small, but when you inflate it, it's going to be really big.
yeah. Yeah.
There it was.
That was your solution, like to
It was my solution.
exhibitions. Because also recently you went to Milan. You were invited to be part of Isola Design, Milan Design Week, just a month ago. If they were still as big as they were with styrofoam, it would have been a difficult trip for you to do.
Difficult trip. And now I only had one suitcase. So I
I
bring
saw the suitcase and I was like, how is she doing this? One suitcase and you had all your inflatable designs in there and
yeah.
your hair dryer.
No, not a hair dryer. So now I'm being a pro, right? So I did research on all the inflatable, ventilation systems. You've got like a ton of it.
Yeah.
And it's also, so actually it has a really big technical background. It's kind of an engineering work what I'm doing, because I have to pay attention to the air pressure, and I have to pay attention to the noise, and I have to pay attention to the weight, which was in Milan a big issue because this was the first time that I was outside with my work for a whole week. And my work is really fragile. You cannot compare it with inflatable art, which can be used for children. You know, these really big castle. It's all handmade. It's all one off, but it's also really light. So when the wind came in Milan, I had a really big problem. And then so inside the inflatables, there's a ventilation system, and now I have the system with bags, which I fill with water. So it has pressure on one side, and it can stay at one side. But with a lot of wind, I just there was one day with a lot of wind, and then I had to break it down.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very weird because Milan normally does not get wind really because it's obviously in the pole. So yeah, that was not a lucky day. I remember that was a tough day for everybody. But I'm what was your learning experience besides the wind, besides being outside? How
Yeah,
was
well, it was great. I mean, I had such a lovely audience. Everybody loved it. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm the biggest fan of my work, obviously. But then there were a lot of people really loved it, and everybody wanted to take pictures with it. So that was also really cool because yeah, that's actually where the work is for, right? So everybody wants to take pictures with it, and I had a lot of contacts and a lot of new customer stuff coming up. So it's Milan is like a wonderful place to be at the design week, and I really want to go again another time. So I do two things actually. I rent out my work and I work under commission. So when I work under commission, what for me is really important that I know the space, so I can make an inflatable measured to the space. Yeah, so I'm really, my dream is to make a really cool inflatable in a cool space somewhere in Milan. So please, guys, this is invite me.
This is a request. This is
Yes, please. I was really, that would be great in a cool palace or something like that. So that's what I'm.
That's required. So you also rent, which I find very interesting because there's not a lot of designers. Well, obviously, art is something that sometimes you loan to an art gallery. Of course, those are always, because that's, it's not a way of making money for art. But in your case, you're renting.
Yeah.
What is that choice? Why would you do that? And what's that balance? Between the balance we were talking about before. Renting, commission.
Yeah, so I see myself as a company. That's different in art land. Most of the people make art and they sell it. Well, my work is quite big, so it doesn't fit in a home. It's not made for in a home. But I see myself as a company. So I have a prop rental, which is a set piece, a set design, and art directors and stylists and companies can approach me and they can rent my work. It's really light and really portable, and it's really easy to transport. So I do photo shoots a lot actually, and under commission is like making a statue, or you could say, for under commission, for example, interior designs, but then hospitality design, so hotel lobbies. I'm also having at the moment talking to a hospital who maybe want to buy it. Big big buildings with lobbies, that's also a good place for my work. So this is what I do. That it's a, yeah, I why shouldn't I make money? I mean, I'm not yeah, I'm having a company, and I think what I'm doing is quite special, and I'm a specialist in what I do.
Well, I think it's interesting, the renting component, because you've worked with brands like Olili, for example. So it's interesting they use your work for photography because of obviously Olili also being very colorful as a fashion brand. It fits with your designs. So hence also your interest perhaps now in photographers, because it's obviously it's connected your work a lot. It's giving you a great image. It's something, your work is very Instagrammable as well, which I think in today's world, say it's not important in the end. If something is fun, if something is colorful, and then with the link to other design and fashion, I think that is very, although you say you don't want to be the most trendy work artist out there.
No,
It is.
I am. I'm totally into trends. I don't feel that's like the whole part with not having a big political message. I don't want that. I don't feel like it's my mission to change the world. Well, I do want to change the world, but it's on another scale. And yeah, so it is a trend. And I was at the cover of the Financieel Dagblad, like financial,
Like the Financial Times of the Netherlands, yeah.
yeah, of the Netherlands, and I was on the cover with a really cool interview.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, I was there. Yeah, it was fun. And then there I also said that it's, yeah, so this inflatable thing you can rent out, it is a trend, and I'm adjusting my colors to what's hot on Instagram and stuff, and I think that's totally fine by me.
Yeah. I think also, so you say that you don't have a strong mission, you don't have a strong statement, but I think that if people look at your work and they simply feel fun and happy, I think that's a pretty good thing.
Yeah, you think so? Yeah, because I was educated. Obviously, when you do a master degree in art, then there's a lot of conversation about having a subject matter and having
Deeper
feeling,
meaning.
yeah,
Yeah.
or meaning, and that uh, yeah, I sometimes feel a little bit lonely there. That I'm not into that.
Yeah. Talking about this loneliness, I think people like you and I, we work technically by ourselves on our own. Sometimes we collaborate. How important is community for you? Exactly.
Oh,
Because you're working alone, you work it by yourself, you
yeah.
sew it by yourself because you still want to sew by yourself. You don't want other people.
No, 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 no. I really want to do it myself.
Yeah. But how important is community and also working perhaps with other artists for you?
Yeah. So community is really important, as I also can imagine that it's also important for you. So it's like, for example, when I'm going to the schoolyard to pick up my kids, and I'm saying, "Yeah, I'm. What do you do for a living? I'm an artist." Everybody looks like I'm coming from the moon, right? So people really don't understand what I'm doing. Why am I doing? Am I making any money? That's also really big question mark people have. But so community for me is extremely important. I'm doing most of the work myself. I'm now actually looking for people who can help me with making my patterns. So from the clay model to make a flat, actually to cut out my fabric. This is where I also work together with people, but most of the time I do it myself. So when I'm, for example, also in Milan or talking to you, it feels like family. In Dutch, we have a saying, I don't know if that's in English, but in Dutch, we have a saying, a half word is enough.
Yeah.
Translate that. But
Oh, you can't translate it. No, but you just
no,
means that you speak the same language. Just
totally.
understanding without speaking to one another. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like speaking the same language. So I call it my art family. And actually, you did. You're my art sister.
Thank you. Thank you for involving me in your community. No, I totally get that about community, especially when you're working on your own.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need somebody who's gonna mirror back your
Yeah.
thoughts or
Yeah.
confirm. And sometimes having conversations is
Yeah.
not only inspiring, but it also you can adjust your thinking. Maybe
Exactly. And
you have to
yeah.
change it a little bit.
Yeah, and exactly. For example, Paul and Albert is also a designer duo, and I cannot live without those guys because they really, they're helping me so much and saying, Lily, you should do this. Did you try this? And it really helps to keep the creative process going, and
Mhm.
also to figure out new ways and new ways of thinking. And I really, yeah, those guys, I really love them. I should say that out loud. This is a big, big shout out. Paul and Albert, you rock! Yay!
Yes. I think it's interesting also. Just the other day I was having a conversation with a fellow color expert, and it was a funny conversation because I think nobody expects that you help out another color expert because we're all in the same
Yeah,
area. Perhaps we even have similar clients. What's wrong with helping each other out or getting somebody a project, or in this case it was a speaking gig. If I can't do it, why would I not suggest somebody
no,
else? I mean, I think that's a little bit the womanhood, femalehood, sisterhood, whatever you want to call it, but also community. Because in the end, it's only, I know it sounds very like, but only together you can actually feel a little bit stronger, and you can feel that
yeah,
you're not the only lunatic out there thinking about color in a certain way. Because I really felt that a couple of years ago before I met my color people. I thought I was
yeah.
just, something was wrong with me.
Yeah, no, like you come from the moon. Everybody's like, what is? I never thought about that. Inflatable design. People are like, what? Yeah, yeah. I totally feel you. So it's really nice to have your people around, and when you feel lonely, and because it is an art process, right? You're on your own, figuring out how to do that, and it's also not a really big world, right? If you are like, for example, teacher, when I'm a teacher, there are thousands of teachers I can talk with. But as an artist, which I'm most of the time, which I'm in my core and in my whole thing. It's really lovely to speak with people like you.
Your website says, indeed, break free from the average. What does that mean for you? Like, because it is a
But
message, and it's a good.
yeah, it is a message, and I do, and it was a really it's a really, it is a message. So as I was saying, it took me quite a while to break free from the idea of my family, what art's supposed to look like. And it was a really tough journey to break free for being an artist. So breaking free from average means for me, you don't always have to be normal, and you don't always have to fit in the mall with everybody thinks you are, right? As being a mom of three kids, there's a lot of expectations there. Yeah, at one point I just want to say screw them all.
Yeah.
There's only one life, and there's only one Lidi Bus and only one Judith van Vliet, and you only have to, yeah, give yourself the space to be whoever you want to be, right? It's okay. Yeah, well, there's a really big meaning. Well, it is a big message, but it is. I heard, do you know Bas Koster?
Yeah.
He was saying, and that this I think is really inspiring, and also really feel strongly connected with him when he was saying, being myself inspires other people to be themselves.
True.
And this is what I really hope to do for other people.
Yeah, I think that is exactly right. And I know we don't have that feeling when we're 18 or 20, when we
No.
to select our university and what the rest of our life is going to look like. I mean, obviously, mine took a whole different shift because I was in political science.
Yeah. Yeah.
Still very.
You're really off. You're really off.
I'm completely off. Complete.
I love that. Yeah. That's fun. But you cannot imagine when you're 18. I have a kid around here, he's almost turning 15, and he has to choose what kind of subject. It's people are out of their mind. Give the kids some space to be a kid. Why?
Yeah. I think there's not a lot of people that do exactly what they studied for, at least not in my case. I did the HABO, European Studies in The Hague, and I think all those people are just in completely different areas. But it's interesting. But as a HABOer, you know a lot about a lot of things, but not in detail. So we know a little bit about many stuff, but in the end, we're no experts in nothing. So I really had to study color because I did not know anything about it. And I think we both are lucky people that at a certain point we got what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
And we focused and we're going with it, because you and I, we also talk a lot about how difficult it sometimes is because you're on your own and sometimes you have a lot of work and then you're like, how am I gonna finish all of this? And then suddenly there's silence, like there's no emails. And you're just like, oh, now what?
Yeah.
What do I do? And this
You
is
really have to cope with this uncertainty, and you really have to stay strong and believe in the future that somebody is going to pick you up. And yeah, that's hard. That's the hard part.
Yeah,
being uncertain.
Community. That's also community.
Yeah.
You talk with people about it, and then at least you feel a little bit better that day.
Yeah, and I also want to say is that, do you know my also really cool community friend Ilse? She has like a graphic. She's a graphic designer, and she gave me this book of Rick Rubin. Do you know him?
No.
He's into music, but he did all. I don't know well. He wrote a really cool book about being creative, and he says, and there are a lot of movies on Instagram about him. He says, don't think about the outcome. The outcome isn't important, and that also is like a really strong thing which keeps me going. Like, when I'm in the studio, and I also feel that with you, like, color is your thing, right? You don't have to think right away, okay, so color is my thing, so what can I do with it? Just focus on what you're interested in, and then the rest will come for yourself. And obviously you have to make money and do stuff, do the laundry.
Yeah.
I think it's more important to focus on what's in your inner interest, and don't focus on the outcome. The outcome will follow.
Yeah, the outcome will come, especially when you're on your creative flow and your creative journey.
Yeah,
whether
yeah, yeah.
sometimes the outcome is different because you never know. What were the colors that really you saw a little bit in Milan? Because I know you did not have a lot of time to walk around, but was there a little bit of color inspiration in Milan that you're like, interesting. Maybe I'm going to use this for a next project?
I went to this really big installation where I saw it on your Instagram stories actually. You inspired me to go there. It was a really big installation and you had to go to this palace and there was this hanging things in the wind.
Elika cooking. That was Elika cooking. Yeah.
Love that. I love that. And I also really loved I love the movement, obviously, because my work is also moving, and I also love the transparency and I love the measurements really. Yeah, but about color, it was white and transparent and it's blue, I can imagine, and a
It was
little bit.
blue. It was the colors of fire, of course. So the cooking. So it was the blue, red, and yellow. So
I
those
love
it
that.
was gradients. It was a gradient. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a gradient. That was really cool. It was a gradient. And he wasn't afraid of you using white. Sometimes I'm a little bit afraid of using white because white, yeah, it's a really good supportive color, or as we call it a color. Can we call it a color? That's a whole different story actually. But white, I can be a little bit afraid of. And he wasn't afraid of it. I just thought that was beautiful.
Yeah. Why do you think people are afraid to use white? Because there's a lot of people that use white because they don't know what to use. So it has both, but in your case, you're like, I don't want to use white. Like, what is that? Why would that scare you, to use white?
White for me is really minimalistic and I'm the opposite.
Yeah.
So I'm really extrovert. I'm really ADHD. I'm being all over the place, which doesn't mean which doesn't mean I'm I'm awful or I'm really stupid, but I'm not. I can, and I also really appreciate minimalistic work. For example, Scandinavian design and wood and stuff, and craftsmanship. I really have a high appreciation for craftsmanship, but white makes me think of minimalistic stuff. And then also, as I'm saying, sitting in this white thing, it can also for my work really well as you have, like, for example, a white cube or a gray background is also really good for my work.
Just for your contrast. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. For the serration, I have really a high serration. Is serration a good word? Like,
Saturation.
yeah, a saturation for my color. So when you have like a, a clean background, that's also good.
Yeah, but you would not easily use it in your work. So you
Mm.
use it as a background, as a surrounding, to give the attention, because that's the beauty of white is that it doesn't it's not a quest for attention. So the attention goes to your work. So that's why obviously white is a good solution. But no, I get that. If you're an extravagant color user, white is probably not the best of your choices, because white
Oh,
also because white simply is not fun. And if you want your work to be fun, it's not white or gray.
exactly. It's really serious and also really adult thing to use white. I rather stay in the child mode, I think.
Oh, Maria, what are you working on now, or what are you
Yeah.
going to see next from Lidi Bus?
So next thing coming up, 26th of May. Oh, that's after the launching of the podcast, but that doesn't matter. I'm going to be at the Young Design Fair. So Barry Dijkstra, he approached me and he asked me if I want to participate. And it's in Rotterdam. It's at home. It's around the corner. So I'm going to be there all day. Please come and say hi. It's a new institute down and it has really cool gray background, so I think my work would look really nice and I can make pictures of you, so feel free to make a cool Instagram post.
Yep.
This is what I'm going to do, and hopefully I will meet a lot of new people. There are also going to be fashion people, so, and I'm also into fashion, so let's hope for really cool connections.
Yeah. Let's hope for that as well. Yeah. And I hope somebody listening to this podcast is going to get you this big commission.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, I'm in for that.
In a huge, building or something. I was just visiting Casa Decor here in Madrid yesterday, and that was also in Palacio de la Trinidad. So it's this beautiful old building, so typical from what Madrid is, but also Spanish culture. And then you had that amazing contrast between modern, obviously interior
Yeah,
design, and then the contrast of something that is so beautiful and old. And I think that would also be super cool with your work to see your
exactly.
super colorful modern work in these beautiful antique floorings and these, what they do, the beautiful ceramics that they have here in Spain and obviously also in Italy, more in the south of Italy. That would be
Yeah.
definitely great. So I wish that for you.
Yeah, that would be great. Please contact me. I'm always happy to talk and talk about ideas and colors, and I'm
Thank
open.
Thank you so much for being part of the Color Authority podcast and sharing
Yeah.
thoughts and everything.
Well, thank you for having me, Judith. I'm well, as I was saying, I'm a big admirer of your work, and I really am following up all your color experience and adventures, I should say.
I hope you enjoyed this last episode. If you are a fan of the Color Authority podcast, please let us know by reviewing and rating our show on whichever platform you're listening on. The next episode is coming out next month, and in the meantime, I'm wishing you a wonderful, colorful day.